I've always loved a good deal and something that punches well above its price point. If you saw my big Milesel P50B test video, you saw that I was very impressed with the Lishen LR2170LA cells. They perform great for the money. I thought it would be good to compare those and the EVE 40Ps. These cells are both 4,000 milliamp hour cells. They're both rated 35 amps continuous, 45 amps peak. They're not tabless. They have similar specs to the Samsung 40Ts and even close in specs to the Milesel P42A. But these cells are cheap, about $2 to $2.50 each. They're great options for Surrons, e-motos, modified razors, e-skate, and EUC, other high power applications where you're on a budget. And the other reason why the Lishens are really an interesting and significant cell is Amorge. Amorge is a popular Chinese battery pack manufacturer, low-cost maker. They gained popularity first in the modified razor world, where a lot of people have purchased packs from this company and written glowing reviews about the value and build quality of these packs. Now Amorge is getting a name for themselves in the Surron community. The main reason? They are cheap with a capital C. You can actually get a 72-volt Surron battery pack from Amorge for $600 approximately. $600. Can you believe it? Yes, of course, that price is with the cheapest possible cells, and those are the Lishens that I'm testing here. But as you'll see in the test, and as I found before, I think for the money they perform really well. First here is the full Lishen test video that was part of the big Milesel P50B comparison test. If you've already seen that, you can go ahead and skip past it to the EVE 40P test and then some follow-up testing I do on the Lishens and my conclusions. So if you're looking to make a high power battery or buy a high power battery for a really cheap price, this is definitely your video. Okay, the first Lishens are here, LR2170LA. These I'm sourcing all from Ukraine. The numbers I wrote on are just tracking numbers, so I keep track of which cell came from which seller. I'm going to get about 5 or 6 of these, so I get a representative sampling. I think there's a low chance of these being fake because these are the cheapest cells here. Most likely the P45Bs are going to be fake, which I found. Anyway, got like 5 or 6 of these coming. I'm really excited to test them because I found pricing. On IMR, it's crazy. I don't understand why they're so high. I'll show on here what I'm going to go over all the prices, but on IMR I think they were like $5-6, which is insane. Strangely, Encon does not sell these. I don't know why, because it's a popular cell. But I think the best way to source these, if you're going to get them, is directly on Alibaba. If you need to set up an Alibaba account, and you can get them. I'll put the information on the screen. Notice a little color difference too. I just kind of see that in the light. I'll put on the screen, but in general, I'll show on here. You can get these in quantity for about $1.20 each, and even if you add, say, $60 shipping to US, I'm getting 200 of them. You're still only at like $1.50 each. So I'm really excited because if these perform pretty well, they have, by the way, the same specs. The factory specs are the same as the 40T. Interesting, huh? Oh no, shit, I'm wrong. I'm sorry. It's the other one. No, I'll put it on here. I think these are the same, and I have one more Chinese cell coming. I believe these are the same rating as the 40T also, which is 4,000 milliamp hours and 35 amp peaks. Yeah, they came in 372, which is unusual. Oh, those are looking pretty low. That's looking pretty good. 16. Wow, that's better than some of the Milesel P42s, I think. I think it's better than the 50S. Oh, that's surprisingly good. 16. Okay, let's look at the next one. Okay, next one here, U4962. Oh, it already started. That's pretty strange, though. Look at what the voltage was. This just came from out of the box from the seller. This was at 379 volts, also higher than the normal storage voltage, so it's something that's been charged, which is weird. Also looking good though. 13, wow, that's great. So yeah, I was right. I'll put on the screen the IMR batteries page and actually the Lishen product PDF. They're rated at 45 amps peak with 80 Celsius cutoff. No, obviously you can pull 40 amps out of the 50S or the 40T also. It's not good for the cell. 35 amps peak is the real rating for cycle life, and 4,000 milliamps. So very cool, because these and the other Chinese cell I'm getting, which will be here soon, they have the same specs as my guys that I've used a lot, 40Ts. So specs are identical. 35 amp peak maximum continuous, 4,000 milliamp hours. I believe that these are going to be about at least double the price of the Lishens, but we'll see how they perform. Okay, here we go. First test on the Lishen LR2170LAs. Going to do the constant 55 mile an hour test, so 10.4 amps. What I expect this to perform similar to is a 40T, which ended up the test at 353 volts and 9.5 plus Celsius. So here we go. Oh, it would be great if I did the temperature probe, yeah? Temp. .394 initial voltage drop. 394. I have to say, the Samsung, the 40T, ended it at 353. We're at that now, and this temp increase looks really good too. Gotta calculate it, compare. Very, no, for the first one, this is the first one, very impressive so far. 352, 350. 352, 350. Okay, so here's the result of the first Lishen cell test, and I think it did really good. I'm actually surprised. Almost comparable to the 40T. Let's look at initial voltage drop. So, first 5 seconds under load. The 40T did 397, which was actually the 50S did worse, 394. The Lishen did 394, so actually the same voltage drop as one of my 50S's. So that's interesting. Temp increase for the first few minutes was really looking great. I mean, it was just a couple degrees. By the end, we were at plus 7.3 Celsius, which is better than the 40T did. Let's look at the 50S. 50S's, here's both of them, 7.9, 8 Celsius basically, and 9.4. So look at that. It had better temperature increase characteristics than the 50S, and the 40T. So on temp increase, the Lishen, this Lishen, we'll confirm it with the other ones, has less temp increase than the Samsung 40T and the 50S's. That's pretty impressive. And impressive also is the voltage drop. Look at that. At the end of 10 minutes, we're at 352, only 1/100th behind the 40T. That's pretty damn impressive. Now, I have read a couple places where they said they're comparing this as a low-cost alternative to the P42A, and it's not really competitive with the 42A, because the 42A, well, I mean, maybe. These are the two 42As, 357, so pretty significant difference in voltage drop. This was 352, 357, and one did plus 5.8, one did plus 7.0. So these two were pretty close. That one did better. So, I mean, yeah, it's definitely not in the same category, but it's not a world worse than the P42A. And forgot just to add, for the money, the price difference, if these you can get for $1.50 each, and P42As are still, say, around €4, $5, I think they're even more. I've got to check the IMR battery price. But if these are $5 and these are $1.50, to live with, this difference in voltage drop and this difference in temperature, Lishen seemed like a pretty good bargain. But the one thing that obviously this doesn't take into account is cycle life. None of my testing, unfortunately, that I'm doing now is showing cycle life, how these perform, after 1,000 cycles of drawing 10 amps. I need to add one more to my assumptions, my preconceived notions. My assumption that I just had in my mind, and that's why I wasn't even going to test these at first, is that these super cheap Lishen cells the kind that you see in the super cheap $600 Amorge Surron packs. Yes, you can actually get a 72 volt Surron pack from Amorge for $600, which is incredibly, ridiculously cheap. My assumption was that because they're so cheap, they had to be total crap, right? I mean, how could something that cheap not be? So far, we'll confirm it with more testing, but so far, that assumption is wrong too, because they appear to be performing not bad at all. Second Lishen, doing the 55 mile an hour test. $398. $398. Now this one is definitely performing a bit better than the first one. We'll see which, what the average comes out to be, what the norm is. Okay, coming up on 10 minutes. 354, 36.2. This one did better. Initial voltage drop 398. Better than the 40T, better than one of the P42As, almost identical, better than the 50S. That's pretty amazing. Then the other thing that's quite impressive is, you can see here how it did at 5 minutes, 375, better than the 40T, almost as good as the P42A. And then at 10 minutes, 354, better than the 40T, better than the first Lishen. This is 357 on the P42As. So a little bit less, a little bit worse, more voltage drop than the P42A, 3100s. But look at the temp increase. Better than the P42As, plus 5.3. We had 5, 8, and 7. Almost as good temp increase as the P50B. So only plus 5.3 Celsius and 354 better than the 40. I just looked at the pricing on the 40T and IMR batteries. I'm looking at 200 quantity, like for a Surron battery pack. And at IMR, they are $425 each. So compare that, $425 each for the 40T. The Lishen you can get from Alibaba for about, $1.20 each, but figure with shipping for 200 about $1.50. So $1.50 for these, with these results, and $425 for that, with that result. I just realized I didn't do the weight on these guys yet, the Lishens. So let's do that and see where we end up. I bought all these tester instruments for you guys to do this video because I really wish this video had been done before I built my first pack. Okay, 6453. Okay, this one 6496. Just to show that we're calibrated correctly here. 50 gram weight. And third, this guy 6479. Okay, now this guy on the 55 mile an hour test. U2417. Alright, let's see how it does. Let's see which one's representative. I hope the better performing one, I hope that's the norm. Oh, starting temp 29.7. $398. $398 initial voltage drop. 390, 30.0. 390, holy shit, that's great, 30.0. Stuff that provides really good performance for the money has always gotten me excited. I used to be a home theater audio video journalist, writer for magazines back in the very early part of this century, and what always got me really excited about home theater stuff or audio video equipment was when a new component came out, whether it was a projector or, usually projector, but amplifier, display, TV, whatever. that gave really great performance, but at a much reduced price than similar performing competition. That always got me really excited. So, even though Lishen, it's not a brand name like Molicel or like Samsung, you can't brag to your friends that you got a brand name battery like Molicel. If these things perform pretty close to the 40T or even pretty close to the P42A for such a reduced price, I would totally use those. Nobody can see the brand of cells that's inside your battery pack, and if you want to look cool, just stick a Molicel sticker on the outside of your battery box. Okay, 376, 32.6. 376, 32.6. Look at that. I know this video is going to be super long, but I'm surprised and excited by these results. Look at this, is after 5 minutes, 55 miles an hour, 376, 32.6, but we got to look at different starting temps. But look at the voltage drop. Better than the 40T, obviously. Equal to the P42A voltage drop. Okay, coming up on 10 minutes here. I have to say, I am really surprised and impressed by the performance so far of these Lishens, at least on this test at 10.4 amps. Maybe they won't do so well at higher amps, but 10.4, I'm super impressed. I'm more impressed with these. I expected to be super impressed with the P50Bs, and I was disappointed. The Lishens, I had low expectations, and they're actually performing surprisingly good. Oh. 355, 34.5. Okay, so I calculated the results of this third Lishen, and holy shit is my reaction. Holy shit. Initial voltage drop, 398, so equal to the second, better performing one. But like I said, at 3 minutes, look at, we were at 384, better than the 40T obviously, and equal to the P42As, and better than the 50S for voltage drop. Amazing, but to me it gets even more impressive at 10 minutes. At 5 minutes also did like the 42. 10 minutes, so we finished at 355, a little behind the P42As. We were even with the P42As at 5 minutes. At 10 minutes it dropped off a little bit, so 355, these were 357. Obviously did better than the 3 and than the 40T. But look at the temperature. This is what just blows me away. Look at this one, did even better. Third did better than the second. Sorry about that. Only plus 4.8 Celsius. That's crazy. Compare that to the 40T, almost 10 Celsius. For the money, pretty impressive. Now I'm real excited to see how it does on higher amps. This is only 10.4 amps, so we'll see, do the results also look good at higher amps. Okay, here we go, 3 minutes. 346, 46.3. Okay, 30.4. $373. Okay, 347, 44.2. It just hit 340. Okay, third Lishen, 23 amps. Starting temp, lower, 28.3. 28.3. $374. Initial voltage drop. Drop. It seems like, which is strange, but it seems like the ones that have been a little warmer have performed a little bit better. Okay, other cells were 347, 346, 348, 40.9. 353 initial voltage drop. Coming up on 3 minutes. Pretty warm. 324, 55.4. They were similar, 10 amps. Okay, 329, 52.6. 329, 50. Okay, so this one did do the best, but just by a little bit. Voltage drop 374, ending 348. Okay, so there's a result. Initial voltage drop 364. Forgot to highlight that. So a little bit better, a little bit the best. Plus 6.6, 350, doing a little better there. 2 minutes plus 14 plus 15, 340, the same. And 3 minutes we're at 330, which is the best of the three, and plus 21.3 Celsius. So the best performing. So 330 and plus 21 compared to the Samsung, better. We were at 61C, we're at 52C, and 331 and 53C, very close to P42A performance.
31.6. 349. Okay, 1 minute. 334, 42.9. Up on 2 minutes, 35 amps to max rated for this cell. I will try the 40 though. 323, 55.4. Okay, coming up on 2 minutes, getting pretty close to. See how it compares to the 42 though, which does better. We started kind of warm. That's warm though. So 312, 67.
Okay, 35 amps with this one, 2852. 10, let's go with that. $354, $340, and 42.6. This one, like before, is performing a little better than the first one. 330, 53.9. Sorry about focusing there, it's difficult. This one definitely did better. Let's see how it compares to Samsung again. So 317, 64.4. Okay, let's analyze the second one. Pretty amazing performance, to be honest. Initial voltage drop 354. This one did better, and this one actually coming up, it actually did the best on the other ones. 354, 11 Celsius, 22.9, finishing 317, quite a bit better, and 64.4 plus 33.4. Compare that to 40T. So 317, 64.4 Celsius. Samsung 308, 70 Celsius. And here's what's kind of amazing. P42A, 316. Lishen 317.
I just wanted to kind of go over for a sec the different batches, what the actual serial number is on each of these. The good thing is they're all different. I'm just noting this because there's a little bit of variation. So this is 2417, that's the batch number on it. That's one that's kind of performed the best. 2852, there's the batch number. You guys are experts and figure out the production date, 809. And then this one, there's the batch number.
Okay, this one, which was the best performing one, 35 amp. Starting temp, 31.1. $357. So other cells. 340, 41.8. 329, 53.0. 316, 63.0. Okay, so how did this third cell that was kind of the star before do? Well, initial voltage drop, it did the best, 357. That's really good. 340, same. 330, 329, and ending voltage we're at 316, and it just gone from 317 to 16. So basically the same. First and third one did the same. Temp increase 63.0 or plus 31.9. So it had the least temp increase, that did the best on all of them. Plus 31.9. How did that compare to, no, what was our ending temperature? 63.0. 63.0. 40T was 70. P42A was 62.7, so only 0.3 degrees difference. Of course, 50S was ridiculous, 73.0. Even the P45B was 57.7, which is pretty dang impressive. 57 also from the P50B. So in general, great performance. Like I said before, still have 2 more tests. Got to do the 40 amp quickly, see how it does on there, and gonna do the mixed load. Okay, Lishen 40 amp. Let's see how she does. Starting temp 30.0. Uh, 344 initial voltage drop. Remember, there's kind of specsmanship going on with these, where they say they can do 45 amps, but you know, with reduced cycle life and temperature limited 80 Celsius, it's not really a 45 amp cell, just like the 50S isn't, the 40T isn't. But yes, it can pull peaks. It'll just be interesting to see under this, you know, torture test how it compares to the other cells. Okay, coming up on 1 minute. Let's see where we're at. 329.44.1. These relations are very impressive. Okay, here we come. 2 minutes. And shut it down. 318.58.4. 318.58.4. Okay, so pretty amazing results. Here it is. Sorry about that. Compared to the big boys. So we did initial voltage. I didn't do this on the 40T because it's not rated for it. But I compared it to all the other ones. More expensive. Initial voltage drop 344. Look at P40A actually had more voltage drop, 343. 50S 333. Almost a tenth of a volt higher, but better than the Lishen did, 344. So it actually beat the 42A and the 50S. Crazy. After 1 minute, 329. Look at 42A, 327. Actually did better. Look at the 50S, 316. Did better than both of those. Crazy. Temp 44.1. The Molicel 43, so a little better. And 50S was already hotter. And then after 2 minutes, which is really kind of torture testing, we were at 318 volts. Make that a little neater. 318. 318. Look at same as P42A. Look at ending temperature 58.4, 59.0. Look at the 50S, 66 Celsius, 7 degrees hotter, and look at the 50S, 309. 318 versus 309. So not only, this is amazing. I thought at the higher amps, the Lishen would kind of, you know, fall apart more. You know, I was expecting it at like 10 up to 20 to kind of be competitive, but, you know, at the higher, for it to really, not perform as well. Look at this. At the 40, the highest test I can do, it matches the end voltage after 2 minutes with a Molicel P42A. Crazy. Temperature is actually almost identical, half a degree lower. And look at it compared to the 50S. 318, much less voltage drop, and temperature 58.4 versus 66.1. Crazy. Obviously the P45B and the P50B did better, as they should. But this is amazing. Even at 40 amps, it tied the P42A and did better than the 50S. Just nuts. 23 seconds. Focus, I'm trying to focus. Okay, here we go, 5 minutes. 363.39.7. 363.39.7. Okay, so here's the result of mixed load test. It didn't do quite as good as I expected. No, it didn't do bad, but I kind of thought it would be better even. About the same as a 40T. Temperatures, also these were the same, so good comparison. After 1 minute, 40T was 385, this was 383. 2 minutes, 381, 379, so a little worse. 3 minutes, 376, 374, a little worse. 4 minutes, 370, 368, it was just at 369, but counted 368. And at the end, 40T was 363, and the Lishen was also 363. Temperature, almost identical. Okay, it's nighttime. This has been running many hours straight. Just finished the last capacity test on the last Lishen, 3582 13.2. So this brings up a point, and I guess it's kind of the only negative that I've seen so far on the Lishen. Everything has been, as you've seen, I've been super positive and super positively surprised about it, but this is surprising, not in a good way, and a little weird actually. Look at our capacities. I've got them together with a 40T because they're both on the same page. They're both 4,000 milliamp, right? Both 4,000 milliamp rated. Well, look at where the 40Ts were measuring. 3945, 3958. That one was lower. 3954, 3841, 3958, 3956. 4,000 milliamp cell. And look at the Lishens. What they, all 5 of them measured it, and I got the 10 power here also. So 3621, 3591, 3649, 3806. That was kind of the anomaly. That's 10 power. 3582. So they're all like in the 3600 range, except for that one, 38. When the Samsungs are 38, 39. So I don't know how to explain it. I mean, they're both rated at 4,000. I both measured these the same exact way, which is down to 2.80. You can actually, 1 second, you'll see it on the machine here. If it ever would focus, see there's the voltage cutoff, 2.8. So yeah, that's kind of a negative. I mean, I don't know what to say. I could measure these both down to 2.5, but I'm sure the relative differences are going to stay there. Second EV40P capacity test, 3990. Okay, quick recap about IR on the EVE 40Ps, especially comparing them to the Lishen. So, as I mentioned, it's been kind of difficult. It varies depending on state of charge, temperature, all that stuff. Here are the readings I got on all the 5 different Lishens I tested. So 16, 18, 13, 16, 16. 16 seems to be about the mean for those. On the Lishens, out of the box, one was 20 milliohms, one was 18. Then after charging them a bit to 3.91 and 372 and taking them only a couple minutes off the charger, so still a little warm, the first EV read 16 and the other one read 009. But in general, these were kind of out of the box specifications. These were out of the box, so we can see the EV showing higher internal resistance, and in the testing they're showing more temperature increase, which kind of corresponds with that too. Starting temp is 22.7. .395 initial voltage drop. Okay, coming up on 1 minute, we're at 385 and 23.6. Okay, coming up on 3 minutes, we're at 380 and 26.3. Just for comparison, after 3 minutes on this test, the Lishens were 380 and 383. Okay, coming up on 5 minutes, just for comparison, at 5 minutes on this test, the Lishen were 375, 376, and the 10 power, the red one was 376. Okay, we're at 373 and 28.9. Okay, as we're coming up on 10 minutes here, the Lishen 2170LAs, those did 354 and 355. The 10 power did 355. What I'm really noticing here though is a temperature increase. On the Lishens, we were about plus 5 Celsius, and looks like we're already about plus 10 here. Okay, 354 and 32.8. Starting temp is 23.0. $393. Come up on 1 minute. The Lishens were 389, 390. 384, 24.2. Okay, coming up on 3 minutes. As a reminder, the Lishens were 383 and 384. 10 power is 384. So far, these EVEs are performing 379 and 270. Okay, coming up on 5 minutes. The Lishens were 375, 376. The 10 power is 376. 373 and 29.4. Okay, coming up on 10 minutes here. Again, just for comparison, the Lishens were 354 and 355. 10 power was 355. And for other self-comparisons, the Samsung 40T was 353. So the Lishen and this actually performed better on this test. And the amazing thing is that the P42As did 355. I'm sorry, 357. So almost the same performance as the P42A. Okay, here we go. But the temp increase, that's a big thing here. So 354 and 33.4. Okay, EVE 40P number 1 mixed load. Gonna run both of these, and then on all of them, gonna compare how they did compared to the Lishen 2170LA, Samsung 40T, and the Mouse LP42A. I think it'll be instructive. 23 amps for 7 seconds, 12 amps for 23 seconds. So here we go. Oh, starting temp, a low 22.4. Okay, coming up on 5 minutes. For comparison, both the Lishen 2170LA and Samsung 40T were at 363. Temp increase, so I have to calculate. Okay, here we go. 5 minutes. 35.1 and 363. Okay, EV40P number 2. Mixed load test. Starting temp 25.6. Okay, coming up on 5 minutes. We're at 38.6 and 364. 38.6 and 364. Okay, EVE 40Ps, number 1, high amp, 23 amps, starting temp, 22.4. 368. Okay, coming up on 1 minute, just for comparison, the Lishen was 363. 363. 356 and 28.1. Okay, coming up on 2 minutes, the Lishens were 356. I'm seeing a trend here already. Okay, 35.4 and 351. Okay, coming up in 3 minutes. At 3 minutes, the Lishen was 347. 10 power was 348. 42.6 and 345. 42.6, 345. $369. Okay, at 1 minute, Lishen was 363. 30.6, 358. Okay, coming up in 2 minutes, Lishen was 356. 38.1, 353. Okay, 3 minutes, the Lishen was 347. And plus 13. Let's see how this does temperature-wise. I think it's going up more. 44.8 and 346. Okay, EV40P number 1. 30 amp. Starting temp, a cool 22.8. 355. And 1 minute 30 amp, the Lishen was 349, 345, 350, 343, 34.2. Okay, 2 minutes, the Lishens were at 340, 340, 338, 337, 45.1. Okay, at 3 minutes, the Lishen was 329 and 330 and 328. And 329 for reference. 329, 54.2. Okay, 30 amps. EVE 40p number 2. Starting temp 24.4. 357. Okay, come up on 1 minute. EVE was 349. 344, 35.6. Okay, coming up on 2 minutes. 45.9, 338. Okay, coming up on 3 minutes. Lishen was 329, no, like 328, 330. This one was 329. Notice an interesting trend with these is that they have more initial voltage drop initially in the first minute, and then a little bit less second and third minute. Okay, 330 and 55.6. 22.2. 345. For comparison, the Lishen 1 minute 35 amps was 340. 332, 36.8. Okay, coming up on 2 minutes, the Lishen 2 minutes was 330. 330. 50.7, 325. Okay, coming up on 3 minutes, the Lishen was 317. This has got quite a bit of temp increase. 62.0 and 316. 62.0 and 316. And just to note quickly, this is the Lishen 2170LA. So I'm looking at this one. So we were at 317. So voltage drop is pretty close. 316 on the EVE number 1. But look at this temperature increase. We started at just 22 Celsius, 0.2. So we have about a plus 40 C in 3 minutes, plus 40 Celsius. And the Lishens were 35 and 31.9. 23.4 starting temp. 347. Okay, coming up on 1 minute, just as a reminder, the Lishens were at 340. 37.7, 333. 2 minutes, the Lishens were 330. 51.3 and 326. Okay, at 3 minutes, the Lishens were 317. But again, they had about 31 Celsius increase. These look to have about 40. So 317, 63.7. Okay, 40 amps on the EVE 40Ps. I'm just going to run these 2 minutes. I kind of made the mistake on the Lishen running 3 minutes. The tablet cells, 3 minutes at 40 amps, no problem. These, not really comfortable with having cells getting hotter than 70 degrees Celsius in the place where I sleep. So anyway, here we go. 40 amps. The voltage drop initial for the Lishens was at 40 amps was 335. So here we go. Oh, starting temp 22.5. 337. Okay, coming up on 1 minute. Lishen was 326. 322 and 39.9. At 2 minutes, the Lishen was 316 and 56.5 Celsius. No, performance is pretty similar. So we are at 56.8 and 314. Okay, to do this fairly, I'm going to retest one of the Lishen LR2170LAs, this one in particular. Going to retest them and do 40 amps, and also going to do the capacity test down to 2.5, so we can have a real up-to-date fair comparison with these EVE 40Ps. I'm choosing this Lishen out of the 5 that I had because this one was not the best performing one. It wasn't the worst. There was a little variation. This one was kind of in the middle, so I think it's a good, representative cell for the performance. 40 amp test for 3 minutes. This will be interesting. Didn't do it before. Starting temp, a cool 24.2. 2.7. $335. Okay, coming up on 1 minute. 41.1 and 326. Okay, getting a bit warm. I don't remember if these are rated to 40 amps, peak continuous, or 35. I'll have to see. Okay, coming up on 2 minutes. 56.5 and 316. Yeah, this is pushing it a bit with these, that's for sure. They're not warm wires. I mean, they're not warm. Come on, baby, let's make it to 3 minutes. Yeah, that's definitely warming up quite a bit. That is warming up a lot. 67. Ooh, do not like that. $68. Okay, we're gonna shut it down here. 69.5. Oh, that is hot. 302. 70.9. That's hot. Okay, Lishen 2170LA. This one doing capacity down to 2.5. Okay, that first Lishen did the capacity test down to 2.5 for a fair comparison, and as you saw, it did not do very well, nowhere near 4,000, which is a real bummer. Maybe it was tired and unhappy that I did 40 amps for 3 minutes, I don't know. So I'm taking another one. This one did in the middle on the previous capacity test, not the highest, not the lowest, down to 2.8. So again, gonna run it 0.8 amps, less than 0.25C, which is the industry standard for capacity test. And gonna run it this one down to 2.5 and see, hopefully it does better. Hold on, I just need to show this for a second. So because the first Lishen tested so bad capacity, I'm testing this one, second one, which was kind of in the middle. But I'm looking at my previous capacity test and I noticed one tested way above the others, which is kind of weird. Remember I mentioned in that big test about this A and B grade nonsense on Lishens? Well, I have a shipment coming from a big distributor in China. It's been a month, it should be here anytime now, with both A and B grades. So I'm going to check those out and see what this deal is on Lishens. But so look at this one. This is 3693. This one tested way above the others in capacity, which is really weird. And hold on a sec, I'm going to pause because I need the other hand. Okay, I just put it on charge here. And look where the voltage is at. It started at 211, 222, 228. 243, 247, 250, but it was at 2.11 volts. I never run my cells down that low. It was, I don't know what the last test I did on it, but guaranteed it was not less than 3 volts. Look at 2.63. So this cell hasn't been used. It's been storage since the previous test. Why was it at 2.11 volts? That's kind of weird. LR2170, this one, finished capacity, and that's where we're at. I will test this one that showed the funky 2.11 volts, but so both of them so far way under the 4,000 advertised, which really sucks because I love these cells otherwise. Okay, running this Lishen on the overnight capacity test, 0.8 amps. This one was kind of strange in that it showed higher capacity than the others. Okay, this one done with the capacity test. No, closer to 4,000, 3919, but again, this one is one that had gone down to 2.11 volts during storage. Okay, this LR2170LA, capacity test done, Still consistent, still shitty. 3711. I noticed on the Ligate test site just now that they were only getting 37 something houses. So I think we're consistent representation. So yeah, all consistent, basically. 37 to 38, that one was the outlier in all of them. All consistent and all shitty, way below advertised 4,000 capacity. Okay, here are the results after a long 2 days of testing these. I'm gonna go over this evening, gonna go over all this in detail tomorrow. But the most interesting thing of all the testing may be over here, these two numbers. Okay, so let's briefly go over the test results for everything, and then I'll give you my opinion conclusion on the EV40P versus the Lishen LR2170LA. First, the constant 5560 at 10.4 amps, kind of the least strenuous test. So you can see voltage drop. The two did almost identically. To me, the big story, though, is the temperature increase. The Lishen's only increased about 5 degrees Celsius, and the EV's plus 10 Celsius. That's a big difference at only a 10 amp load. So that's a big increase in temperature increase. And if you notice, both of these did better than the Samsung 40T, which I think the 40T was sort of their design spec that they were trying to emulate or even surpass at a 4,000 milliamp high output cell. So they both surpassed the 40T at a much lower price, but you see the 40T did not, plus 9.5 Celsius, and I was complaining in my big test about how hot the 40T got. Well, the EVs actually heated up even more than the Samsung, which indicates they have higher internal resistance. So you know, the heating is not good. And they both, voltage drop wise, were pretty close to the model cell P42A, 357 versus 354, and the P42A heated up 7 degrees Celsius. So in general, that's why I was so impressed with the Lishen in the big model cell test, that it had almost the same voltage drop and even less temp increase. But the EVs, even on this test, got pretty warm. Okay, next the mixed load test. So again, we had really similar performance in voltage drop. We had 363 from the Lishen, and we had 363, 364 even from the EV. So voltage drop wise, they did similarly. And look at this also, very interesting results. This is on the mixed load. 40T did 363 also, and the model cell P48 did 363. On these three cells, Lishen, model cell, and Samsung, they were all around plus 10 Celsius at the end of 5 minutes. But again, look at the EVs. We had plus 13 and plus 12.7. Very consistent results, even though I was a little sloppy with my timing on this second mixed load. But anyway, so a consistent theme. Voltage drop almost the same between the Lishen and the EVE, but the EVs heating up more. I know this looks like a mess, but I'll go over it and try and explain everything briefly to you. So here are the tests we just did on the EVEs. Here are all the previous tests on the Lishens from the big model cell comparison test. I did add to the Lishen 40 amp, and I ran it to 3 minutes, which I didn't mean to do. That's really just for the tablet cells. You can see how hot it got there. So 40 amp on the EVs, I just ran to 2 minutes. So let's go over each amp test and kind of compare how they did. Let's start at 23. 23 amp are the ones that are not highlighted. So this Lishen was kind of most representative in the middle of all the 5 I had, so I used this one for comparison. So on the 23, it ended up at 347 and plus 13.7 Celsius. EVs were 345, 346, but look at the temp increase, plus 20, plus 21 Celsius. So again, and that's compared to plus 13.7. So again, voltage drop pretty close, a little worse voltage drop on the EVEs, but they heated up quite a bit more. Okay, 30 amp are highlighted in yellow. Oh, I didn't talk about initial voltage drop. Let's do that at the end. 30 amp is highlighted in yellow. So 30 amp, the Lishen did 329 and plus 21.7. 329 and plus 21.7. So 329 and 330, again, basically identical voltage drop, but look at our temp increase, plus, very consistent, plus 31 Celsius versus plus 21. This one had plus 26, that had plus 21. There was some variation in Lishens. I'm going to talk about that here at the end. So again, similar voltage drop, a lot higher temp increase. Okay, going up to 35 amps, that's the pink highlighted. At 3 minutes, the Lishen was 317 and plus 33.4. The EVE, 316, 317. So again, almost identical voltage drop, but look at that, 40 degrees Celsius plus delta temperature plus 40 degrees after 3 minutes. Here we're at 33. That was 35. That was 32, 33. So I think 33 is representative. But again, 7 degrees Celsius more temperature increase at 35 amps. So pretty consistent theme here. And again, as you saw, I ran this Lishen at 40 amps. So let's just look at 2 minutes. At 2 minutes, 40 amps, we're at 316 and plus 31.8. 316 and plus 31.8. Here we're at 314, so almost the same voltage drop, a little worse, and 34.3. So here we didn't have quite as much delta in the temperature increase, but you saw the Lishen when we ran it out to 3 minutes, it went up to 70 degrees Celsius, which is much hotter than I want to have my cells running it. So initial voltage drop at 23 amps, the Lishen was 373. The EVEs were 368 and 369, so a little worse voltage drop. 30 amps, which is yellow, the Lishen was at 363. The EVE was 355 and 357, so pretty significantly worse initial voltage drop. At 35 amps, which is pink, the Lishen was at 354. EVE was 345 and 347. So again, worse voltage drop. And then here at 40 amps, the Lishen had 335 initial voltage drop. EVE had 337. So interestingly, at the highest load, 40, the performance of the EVE and the Lishens were closer. At 23, at everything up to 40, the Lishen, had a pretty significant, significantly better performance than the EVEs. So that's our test results comparison. Let's do a quick conclusion. Okay, so what's my brief conclusion on the EVE 40P versus the Lishen LR2170LA? These are both marketed as low-cost, high-power cells, alternatives to the Samsung 40T. I think that's the design spec that they were both trying to achieve, and even maybe as an alternative to the Molicel P42As. Well, as you saw in my original big Molicel comparison test, I was super impressed with the Lishen 2170LAs. That was the cell that surprised me the most from that test. That was the cell that I was, most impressed with, price performance wise. By the way, both of these, I'm not going to go over the full pricing information on the Lishen. The pricing information from Alibaba, that's in the pricing section of the Molicel video. On the EVE 40Ps, I'll put screenshots of some prices that I saw on Alibaba for them, but they're both quite similar, which is around between $2.20, $2.30, $2.40 each in quantity. So similar prices, and obviously much less than the Samsung or the Molicels. So what's my conclusion now after doing all these tests? Well, as you saw from all the tests I did, the voltage drop performance on both of these is very similar. The EVE was basically lockstep with the Lishens as far as voltage drop, except in initial voltage drop, the Lishens did quite a bit better on most of the tests. No, I mean noticeably better. So if initial voltage drop is what you're really concerned with, if you're going to be doing drag racing or motocross launches, then the Lishens look like the better choice. If all other things are equal, the other reason reason to me that I would choose the Lishen over the EVE is, as you saw, temperature increase. Even the voltage drop on most of the tests was quite similar. The EVEs heated up quite a bit more at pretty much every load test than the Lishens did. And obviously, like I said before, higher temp, that equals faster cell degradation and lower cycle life. Now, that brings me to the negatives on these guys. As excited as I was about the Lishens, I realized that all is not great in Lishen land, and all is not great in EVE land as well. First, let's talk about the big elephant in the room, which is cycle life. As I mentioned here, in the EVE, I was kind of shocked to see the specified cycle life of only 300 cycles. To me, that's kind of crazily low. 300 cycles, obviously, to what capacity, it depends on how hard you use them. Now, the thing is, about that 300 cycle life, I was now researching for this video, and I thought the Lishen had significantly more than that. Well, guess what? No, these are also rated 300 cycles. What they say, and I'll show the screenshot on here, 300 cycles to 80% if you're using it at low charge and discharge rates, and 300 cycles to 60% if you're using them at high charge discharge rates, which I think is the exact same spec as the EVE gives. So that's no, that's a bit, I don't know if the word is worrying or disappointing, but yeah, you need to, I guess, think about that. Probably the design compromise that was made with these, with high power, low price to build, is that they have a lower cycle life than you're going to see in, you know, for example, the P42A, P45B. So you need to think about that, if that trade-off, you know, is worth it to have lower cycle life. So that's a kind of a big concern, that 300 cycles spec, but at least they were honest about it. Now, the other concern to me, big concern about the Lishens. Now, if you saw in the P50B test, I was only testing them down to 2.8 volts, which I felt was a more realistic, you know, interpretation of how they're going to be used in real life, that nobody ever runs down to 2.5, and that's abusive to the cell. So I kind of gave them a pass as only showing 3650 milliamp hours instead of 4000. Well, guess what? There's not that much capacity down there between 2.8 and 2.5. You go down from 2.8 to 2.5, even at low amp load, very quickly. There's very little capacity there. So I tested most of these guys down to 2.5, and as you saw, was surprised and really disappointed to see that the cells I have here, most of them were showing about only 3750 milliamp hours to 2.5, whereas at least the EVEs were giving their rated capacity, very close to the rated capacity, or even a little bit more. So that brings me to this final point about this A-B grade nonsense, I call it, to me it is, about the Lishens, that I found out when I started contacting the Alibaba distributors. They were saying, well, there's different prices for A grade, B grade. One was even selling fake Lishens that look like have the same wrap, but are not the same Lishens. So anyway, I bought all my Lishens, as I said before, in Ukraine, so there's no way for me to know if these are A sword, B sword, or whatever. I assume they're not fake because they all have pretty similar results. But anyway, I have a couple A grade and a couple B grade of the Lishens coming to me anytime now. I've been waiting for them for a month from a large distributor directly in China. They get directly from the manufacturer. So I'll finally be able to test A grade and B grade, compare those to the results of these guys that I have here, and see if these are, you know, representative of the A grade cells, or maybe the capacity is lower because these are B grade. I don't know yet. So I'm gonna, you know, put that as the very last clip here on the video, is the update about the Lishen A and B grade. But for now, as it stands with the cells I have here, between these two, I would definitely choose the Lishen, just because of the lower initial voltage drop and the lower temperature increase. All other things equal, you know, cycle life, price seems to be all pretty similar. So for me, I would choose the Lishen over the EVEs. And here they are. Now, I guess it's overly geeky to get excited about batteries, right? It's kind of super geek, but I am so excited about this. Most excited here to get these other samples of JP40, because I've been wanting to get a couple more to retest and then do an update video on those, so that's good. EVE 40PL, also these go together, so gonna test these as well to make sure the ones I had were, you know, consistent with these, representative. EVE 40P, I'm right now finishing a test on the Lishen, these guys, so these actually go together here, these go together. And as I mentioned in the big P50B video, there was through contacting the distributors, I was really surprised to find out that there's grade A and grade B of the Lishens. So now finally I have both. They're labeled here. I'm going to label them as well, and we'll test, see what the difference is, and see how they compare to the LR2170LAs that I have, because this to me is a very significant cell, very well performing, and want to see the difference so I can help inform you guys if you're thinking about buying them, what to get. Well, the first group of cells testing is done on this first constant 5560 test. What's the brief takeaway? Remember, I was just testing these to see if the results were consistent with my previous tests that this whole video was shot with, which were sourced from Ukraine. So I was checking to see if there's a big difference. In general, there's not a big difference. They're pretty consistent, but there are some really interesting things. So let's first look at the Lishens, the A versus B sort, because I was really curious about that. Well, you can see here they were within 100th or 200ths of a volt at the end of the 10-minute test, so very close. The Lishens that I had from Ukraine did slightly better, 354 and 355. But here's the thing to think about during this testing. Warm temperature seems to give, up to a point, gives an improved result, improved performance. These Lishen, because I was looking at these temp increases and this difference is crazy, and I'm thinking, how can this be? These original Lishen 2170s LA were great. That's one of the reasons why I was going crazy over how good they did on voltage drop and temp increase. Look at, they were all 4.9, 4.6, 5.3, like plus 5 Celsius. Now I'm getting plus 9, plus 10. I'm thinking, why? How can that be the case? Well, one big difference is this testing was done in summertime temperatures. This all testing is done in wintertime temperatures. And you're saying, well, you're indoors. Yes, I'm indoors, but as I mentioned before, I'm forced to live away from home due to terrorists that have invaded my city and are bombing people every day. So where I'm living has terrible insulation, and when it's warm outside, even with heating cooling system, it's kind of warmer inside. When it's cold outside, it's colder inside. So now all these tests, my ambient room temp is about 21 Celsius, which is pretty cool. The room temp was about 27 Celsius. So we started here at a higher temperature, and I think that plays a factor on why we had relatively less temp increase and a little bit better voltage drop. So my conclusion, again, we'll see bigger differences on the higher load test. But just from this test, the results on the Lishens are really consistent with the ones I bought in Ukraine, the ones I bought here. Probably if I started at a higher ambient temperature, I may see identical results. I think these results could be just chalked up to different, starting at 22 Celsius versus 27 to 30 Celsius. It's kind of a big difference, but I can't really control that. Let's talk about the EVEs for a sec, because those are really interesting. These EV40P sourced in Ukraine, 354, about plus 10 Celsius, which we're seeing pretty much on everything else at this temperature. But these EVs, I noticed right away, they had much less initial voltage drop than all these others in this category. 398 instead of like 392, 393, 395. And they ended up the test a bit better, 356 compared to 352, 353, 354. Even the Mali P42As were 357. So these cells, sourced from Alibaba, from a distributor directly from China, these perform really good. I mean, noticeably better. Not huge difference, but better than the EVEs that I got in Ukraine. So it will be really interesting to see how these EVEs perform at higher load. Just one more quick thing to mention on this constant 5560. I wanted to show you here the difference in how much better tabless cells perform. Obviously the P50B is going to do better than these, but look at tablets. So this is the Ampace JP40, 368 and at the end of the test versus 352, 356, 354, 368, and plus 5C compared to most doing plus 9, 10C. So even at the lower amp rate here, the Ampace JP40 tablets have much better performance. Okay, I'm editing here the video and I realized I didn't do the mixed load results. So let's do mixed load results really quickly. In the little box here, these are my previous results. So this is, let's look at the Lishen first. This is what 40T did, this is what P42A did. So the Lishen on mixed load did 363 and plus 9.8, about plus 10 C. So here are the Lishens, the results down here. The A's did 363, the B's did 362. So very close. Ending temps 35, 36. All these started right around 24, 25 Celsius. So we're about plus 11, plus 12. So we did have a little more temperature increase on these cells than my original one. But again, these tests were run warmer. I think that makes a difference. So in general, results very consistent between the previous Lishen and the current ones. Now the EVE, the previous result, I don't have here on the list. I'll have to find it and put it on the screen there. But here is EVE. The first one did 364 and 35.8, so and about the same ending temperature. Second one did 364 and 35.9. So again, very consistent, and I believe this is also identical. We're within 1/100th of the previous EVE 40P test. Now, just out of to show you contrast for giggles, here is what the P50B did under the mixed load test, and look at the difference in voltage drop. Look at the difference, 370 compared to 363, 364. So much better in voltage drop, and only plus 7.4. So yeah, the P50B definitely did better than either the Lishen or the EVE here. I mean, it should. It's the top of the line current cell, tab cell. But for even more giggles, look at how the Ampace. This is what the Ampace JP40. This is currently the top performing tablet cell. It did 376. Compare that voltage drop to 363, 364, 362. Much less voltage drop, and only gained 4.5 or 6.2. So let's say 5, 6 degrees Celsius compared to 10, 11, 12 Celsius for these cells. So you can see here, I mean, these are really good performing cells. The Lishen and the EVE, very good high load cells. P50B obviously did better, but even compared to P50B, JP40 just blows everything else out of the water for less temp increase and less voltage drop. Pretty cool. Okay, time for the high amp test. 2330, 3540. What I decided I'm going to do is, it's probably going to be out of focus. Since these were super consistent cell to cell, the A's were consistent, the B's were consistent, the EVs, everything was very consistent. I'm going to run 2330 on one cell, 3540 on the other, and then with the B's, 2330, 3540, EVs, 2330 and 3540. Because if I ran every test, all 4 tests on 6 cells, it's going to literally take me 3 days. I've already spent a full day just doing the first 2 tests. Okay, real quick, I'm adding this last minute. How can you tell between A and B physically, and is there any difference between the previous Lishens I got and these ones? So one thing I wanted to check is weight. So these are the ones I got from, these are the ones I got from Ukraine. Let's see, 6500, first one. Try and do it quickly. 6454. That's a little bit of variation. Second one, these are all the Ukraine ones that I tested originally in that segment. 6512, so from 64.5 to 6512. Now, these are the ones I just got from Alibaba distributor. So this is A group, A sort, 6513. It's a little heavier. B sort, 6508. So almost identical. So I guess weight, you can't really tell. Hold on, putting them together here physically. Focus there. This is A on the right. Hold on, let's do it like this. So here's A on the right, A sort, B on the left. No, I don't really notice any difference on the tops here. Let's look at the bottoms. Just trying to see if there's any physical difference. Well, the A's have a different wrap. I think that's probably just manufacturing differences. Here's the Ukraine ones for comparison. That's like, this is the widest, that's the narrowest, this is in the middle. So I have a feeling these are just manufacturing differences. So in general, unfortunately, by weight or by physical appearance, there's not really any clear way to tell between the A and the B batteries. Okay, so what's the conclusion? I've just spent 2 full days testing all 6 of these cells that came from China. I recorded about an 8-minute analysis in depth going over all this. I'm going to, in the interest of brevity, just give you a really short version. You can still frame it on these results if you want to, pause it and look at it in detail on all these results. The very short version is, why did I do this? Why did I get all these cells and spend 2 more days doing this? Because in the earlier part of the main part of this test, All the Lishen and EVs I had were sourced here in Ukraine, and I just wanted to get them directly from the supplier, Alibaba supplier, that gets them straight from the manufacturer in China, and confirm that the cells that I have, the Lishens and the EVs, are representative of the cells in general. So I retested, ran all these tests again on the Lishens and on the EVEs. I'm going to show them to you sped up. These are the results. These are the results I got. Circled here what says ref. Those are the results from the previous cells that I got in Ukraine. So you can see how they compared, relative to the other cells. Here's the EVEs. Here's the results, 23, 30, 35, 40, and compared to the ones that I tested before that were sourced in Ukraine. And same thing here, 23, 30, 35, and 40 compared to the reference. Again, you can still frame it if you want to look at it in detail. The very short version is they're consistent, very consistent between the Lishens that I tested earlier and these ones sourced from China, very consistent with the EVEs I tested earlier and these ones from China. Here's our internal resistance readings on the Lishen A and Lishen Bs and the EVEs. So there's your IR readings. And capacity, I'm finishing up, so that's going to be the very last thing it takes to add to the video. It takes like 6 hours for each test. So the very short version is they're consistent, so these cells are representative of the Lishen EVE. And the other real quick thing is about A and B. So the difference, is there a difference between A and B? We can see on IR almost identical, but if you look here at the results, and between the 23, 30, 35, they do perform a little bit worse. The Bs have a little bit more temp drop and a little more voltage drop and a little more temp increase, but it's very, very marginal, like 1/100th, 2/100ths of a volt difference. So there is a slight difference in A and B. The Bs perform slightly worse, but very, very marginal, very small difference. That's it. Okay, so first capacity test is done overnight. This is on Lishen B2, and that is not good. Not good. And I did it at a low rate, 0.8. No, 0.7. Not good. And Lishen LR2170La B1 finished the capacity test, and I'm seeing a trend here that I don't like. Is not good at all. Here's B2. It did 3521, and I did this at a nice low rate, 0.7, I believe, overnight. B1. Finish a capacity test down to 2.5, the abusive low rate, 3547. These are 4,000 milliamp advertised cells. Okay, so here are the previous Lishen and EVE capacities. So I need to have them for comparison. I did run these down, most of them down to 2.5. Okay, A1 starting capacity test Lishen 420 is 0.9 amps. Well, this is a surprise. It just finished. Maybe I found the difference between A and B. Holy crap, that's a huge, huge difference. The Bs were both 35 something. This A, 3920. It's actually within spec of, they say 3900 minimum. But what's really weird is my other LR2170, other Lishens, all of them except for one, measured like 3750. So there's a huge lack of consistency. Lishen A2, 3943. 3943, even better than the other one. Okay, here's EV40PL. LE1, and one thing I will say about the EVEs, they have all given the advertised capacity. 3986, almost right on the mark of 4,000. Okay, well, what to say from this final testing of this long video. If you watched to the end, thank you. I maybe saved the best for last or the biggest whopper for last. I think I found the difference between the Lishen A grade and B grade finally. As you saw, going through the whole last part of this testing, there's really no difference. The voltage drops are almost the same, and I decided to do capacity last. Well, look at this. This is pretty shocking. About the Bs, look at that. They're consistent and consistently unbelievably bad. Remember, this is a 4,000 milliamp advertised cell. The B grade were giving 3521, 3547. Crazy. The A's, no, none of the Lishens met the advertised capacity. Make a note of that. But at least the A's were closer. These were 3920 and 3943. But those B's, holy crap! I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The EVEs. One thing I'll say for EVE, they have all the EVs I've tested have given close to their advertised capacity, which is really cool. I'm testing the last EVE now, and I'll put the results in the notes of this video. But I have a feeling it's going to be consistent with the other ones. So what's the conclusion about Lishen then? Well, as you saw from the other clip that I showed just a minute ago from the earlier testing, these are the China source cells, direct from China. The other Lishens I purchased in Ukraine, and those were all pretty consistent, except for one around 3750. But I made a note that they were far from the advertised capacity of 4,000. But what this shows is that in 3 different groups of Lishen cells that I've gotten, there's been a huge variation in capacity. There's been capacity from 35 to 3750 for the other ones to 3920, 3943, close to advertised. So, you know, and the EVEs have all been close to the advertised capacity. So to me, that's kind of a big minus for the Lishen. I'm sorry to say it. And, you know, as a practical matter, if you're going to be, sorry, I'll keep it focused. As a practical matter, if you're going to be buying these to build battery packs, it's not super hard to test them, because you can, first of all, request from your seller that you want to get A grade or, well, B grade. I don't know if I would choose. And then you can test them, a couple of them, down to 2.5 and, you know, see what you get. Make sure that you're getting the higher capacity cells. But like most people are going to do, I think you just want a cheap battery pack and you're going to request them with Lishen. How do you know if they're A or B grade? Well, the problem is that if you get a built battery pack, you cannot test these down to 2.5. That's very bad for your pack. It's abuse for the cell. And in general, anyway, your BMS is going to cut it off at 3 volts per cell. So it's going to be kind of hard to verify in a purchased battery pack if you really have A or B grade. I think what I'll do is probably remeasure these again down to 3 volts, figure the capacity on 3 volts, and then at least if you want to, you can measure your battery pack down to 3 volts and see which capacity it corresponds with. But so again, sorry for adding more minutes to the video, but I think this is actually kind of a bombshell, big thing that I found here, that actually there is a big difference between the A and the B grade. The ones that I got earlier here in Ukraine, I have no idea still what they are, because they don't test equal with the A's and they're not with the B's. They were in the middle. So, you know, that there's a variation in capacity with the Lishens, that is a real drag to me, because otherwise this is a great cell that I was super happy with about the performance of. I mean, the voltage drop performance on all these has just been great, and the temperature increase performance has been great. But again, I guess if you buy these, you'll want to make sure either that you're getting A-grade cells from your seller, or test them if you're getting individual cells, or if you're getting a pre-built battery pack like most people will, I guess maybe you'll just have to test your capacity. You'll need to buy a capacity tester, a smaller version of this, test your capacity down to 3 volts and see where you're at. So that's it on this bombshell. Thanks for watching.